Man, what a week has it been for the markets. It has been absolutely crazy out there. Pretty much everything's down. Everybody's tweeting about it. Everybody's talking about it. Whether you're at lunch with your family, whether you're in the office, whether you're online, it is something that no one can not pay attention to. But what we wanted to do is take a few minutes to just highlight some practices, advisors that are doing a very, very good job to actually educate their market and stay on top of what's happening. One of the things that we reiterate to our 7 members and just in general to people out there in the advisor community is that now is the time to be in front of clients. Now is the time to stay top of mind. Now is the time to stay educating your clients on a regular basis. And now is the time to get your expertise out there, ensure them that there's a plan of attack, and help them and guide them across everything that they're looking at when it relates to their financial plan, and help them understand what this means for them, their future plan, their current plan, their nest egg, whatever the case may be. So we are going to dive into a few examples of advisors that I am really excited about. Generally, just want to dive into some examples of people who are just crushing the content game right now and doing a really, really good job on staying top of mind and on top of what's happening in the market in real time. So let's get into it. First example here is obviously the people we know well across the wealth management community is the animal spirits guys. Ben Carlson, Michael Batnick, Michael, who's been on the podcast before, are doing just an incredible job as it relates to what's happening in the market, the macroeconomic analysis, also the trends of what we're looking at across different asset classes. And they're doing a good job on breaking it down for the individual who may not be interested on the daily basis of what's happening in the market. For example, I listen to the animal spirits every single day. Now, why I serve the advisor community, I know a lot of other people who don't live within the financial advisor space or the investment management space that listen to their podcast. So there's a few key things that they're doing really, really well. The first of which is, I'll start with their podcast, but generally the Animal Spirits podcast, they release an episode every single week. They've been very well known for what they've put out as it relates to the Google Docs that they follow and how they prep for these shows. But the key that they're doing is, one, they're releasing on a consistent cadence and they're covering what's happening in the market. And the second is that they're repurposing content. So if you look at their YouTube channel, they have their podcast on their YouTube channel. And this is a video version of the pod. So this is very popular. They get about 17 to 50,000 views per episode on YouTube. They've obviously built this over many, many years, but this is just one portion of the consumption, or one way that a user can consume their podcast. So they're publishing their podcast generally on YouTube. In addition to that, they're also publishing their podcast on Apple Podcasts and all their podcast outlets. So basically what they're doing is they're recording it via video or via Zoom or however they're recording it. I'm not entirely sure. And then they're repurposing that content for multiple channels. That allows them to, one, stay in front of different audiences. That allows them to stay in front of audiences that may want to consume via voice. That allows them to stay in front of audiences that may want to consume via video. And they're also able to promote those different channels in different ways. You're going to promote your YouTube channel in a little bit of a different way than you're going to promote a podcast. So they're covering this phenomenally. In addition to that, they're bringing in real-time data as close to the event or as close to the recording as they can. So they're talking about specific things that are happening as it relates to what happened over the last week, or what happened over the last 2 weeks, or data that they found the day before. So the key to staying top of mind in situations like this is that you have the most relevant data at hand, and you have the most interesting data at hand. Stuff that can help people, one, get educated, but also just learn about what's happening within the market. So they're publishing regularly, they're bringing real-time data to the forefront. And in addition to that, they're taking a lot of the information that they're using on the podcast and they're putting it on their blog. So if you look at awealthofcommonsense.com or the Irrelevant Investor, which you can see here, they're getting to a place where they're putting a lot of the content that they're talking about within the podcast on their blog. And I think the key here is that they're repurposing. So if you're an advisor and you're creating a video, you should go to a Google document and you can transcribe that video via Google Voice into a blog post. Obviously, you have to add it up, but generally that becomes a blog post. Then you can also take that blog post, regurgitate that into an email that you can send out to clients. So the key here is that you're thinking about what are the ways that you can take a single piece of content, particularly when it's timely content and it's relevant content. Because at the end of the day, if you're not super timely in times like this, you're already behind the 8 ball. So from that perspective, getting to a place where you're thinking to yourself, how can I take this single asset, repurpose it in 10, 15, 20 different ways in these different channels to hit my different audiences, whether it be my client base or whether it be a more of an unknown audience to the public community. Second group here is our friends at Potomac. Obviously, we know their content. I had the opportunity to meet Manish and the gang last week, and obviously they're putting out a ton of great content. I think the key that what I've seen from them specifically is the fact that they're very research oriented. If you don't know, they have a research product. So you should check that out. But generally, they're taking the research that they're doing internally for their own investment strategies and packaging that up into content for advisors and for the wealth management community. So I think they're facing a little bit more of an advisor focus on this content. However, from that perspective, they're doing an incredible job educating the market and keeping the market up to date. So the first thing that I would say is that they're researched by Potomac, the folks that lead this, Dan Russo and Drew Wells, they're putting out this content, I think every week or even every couple of days. But generally they have a number of different series. I think from that standpoint, especially right now, they're leading a lot of technical analysis as it relates to what's happening with specific indices or what's happening with specific products or ETFs. Or in general across the board. So from that standpoint, they're getting a little bit more in the weeds, but they're putting out this content that essentially brings the visuals to the forefront. So they're bringing the visual to the forefront via this screen sharing functionality where they have Dan and Drew on the left, and then they have the content in the middle. And they're taking that and having that be the learning, essentially the visual learning element for anybody who's consuming or anybody who's watching, which is so key in timely markets. It's the idea that if you're getting to a place where you're unsure if your audience is going to get your message, use visuals. Use visuals, charts, graphics, data points, whatever the case may be, drawing on a whiteboard. Whatever the case may be, you recording a video using a visual like we're using here is so important to the conversation, is so important to help people visually understand what's happening with a specific topic, what's happening with a specific event, so they can actually take it back and be able to understand not only what you're saying, but visualize what you're saying via that content. The other thing that I love that Potomac is doing is that they're keeping a lot of their content heavy on social, and they're breaking it up consistently. Now, the guys at Animal Spirits do this as well. However, what Potomac does is that they take out snippets of what they're doing within these bigger videos, and they're essentially, and I know Manish and them follow a similar model to what we do at Seven, but essentially they're preparing mini clips, mini assets that they can use to drip and also promote on social media. So one of the things here too, we talked about repurposing before with Animal Spirits content. With that, you're really repurposing larger content. With this, you're taking to a place where how can you take a single episode and turn it to a single 2-minute social media, or a larger episode and taking it into a single 2-minute social media post, or taking a larger, longer video and then creating a graphic out of it. So what they're doing is they're keeping their feeds live, keeping their feeds real time, able to educate people as it relates to what's happening in the market based on the fact that they're doing more of these technical analyses on a regular basis to help people understand what's happening across asset classes and across different investment products. In addition to that, if you look at their Twitter feed, they're keeping it They're keeping it diversified in terms of the type of content they're putting out. They put out a ton of video, but they also put out imagery. They also put out different types of videos. So you either have the shared screen versus direct on. So here it's figuring out ways. And then I think they also do a lot of graphic creation for their different content. So it's building out templates. So you could build out templates for videos, a single template. You could build out a template for different graphics that you're producing, that you have 3 to 4 to 5 templates that you can use and plug and play. So from that perspective, if you look at their feed, you may see consistent templates, but they mix them up in the sense of posting one thing one day, posting another template another day. So one of the keys here to staying up to speed, to staying out the door quick, and also ensuring that you're hitting your marks as it relates to staying top of mind with your clients is to keep things interesting by using different types of visuals to promote the content that you're creating. So the Potomac guys are doing a great job going a little bit deeper than some of the other people out there on different things that's happening in the market right now. But the key to what they're doing and the thing that they're doing so well is using those visuals heavily. Next up is our friends over at BWM Financial on the West Coast. Jeff, Allison, and the team are doing a phenomenal job keeping their client base specifically very, very updated, and also those close to their client base very updated on what's going on within the market. So the first thing that they do really well is written content. A lot of their clientele is very big on reading content. So from that perspective, they're creating a lot of written content as it relates to what's happening within the market. And they're making them short, list-oriented pieces where they can keep them very quick, very punchy, but they're getting to the point of what you need to do or what you need to think about as an end client, as an investor. They're making that publicly available. They're not putting that behind a wall or not putting that behind a gate. And they're putting that out the door on a relative basis, on a regular basis to stay in front of their clients. That's the first thing that they're doing. And the key to this and the key learning to this is that do what your clients love, in the sense of if they like to review video or watch video, then you should be creating more video. If they like to read content, you should be creating more content. The other thing that they do really well, or that they're doing really well all the time, but particularly right now in this market, is that one, Jeff, their CEO and president, is very, very active. He's very active on social. He's very active posting. And then the other thing that they're doing is that they're getting to a place where they're hosting webinars for clients and those that are friendly with clients. So whether it's a prospect list or referrals, or they're just letting people invite other people that they want to come to the actual webinar. The key to hosting webinars is that you should hit your client base. You should hit your client base first. You should encourage people to share it. Hit your email list second. That should be your second. Your prospect lists, your newsletter lists, whatever the case may be. Webinars can be insanely beneficial in markets like this because of the Q&A functionality, because the ability that you're able to open the floor, you're able to answer questions that people may have as it relates to what's happening in the market, to concerns that they may have in general across the board, and you're able to answer that and have that dialogue real time. It gives a personal touch without having to go one-to-one. So if you're struggling to keep up to date with your clients, or even to react to their content or react to their questions, then you should take a step back and say, okay, how can I answer all 50 of my clients, or all 100 of my clients, or all 200 of my clients in one full swoop? Best way to do that is to host a webinar, create a landing page, use Zoom, Ring Central, EverWebinar, whatever the case may be, and get to a place where you're hosting events or webinars for your clients. If you're getting a lot of inquiries, you'll be able to hit a bunch at once. You'll be able to open it up the floor so you have personal conversations that are happening, and you're able to make it feel and have it be that clients are getting those answers directly from the horse's mouth when things like this are happening in the market. So real-time webinars, they're doing an awesome job. It's a great idea. If you have a big client base and you're getting a lot of inquiries right now, hit them up, plan a webinar, get it out the door, and just open it up to Q&A. Have a dialogue, have some slides to be able to help educate them, but have a dialogue, have a real-time expert on the call to be able to help you if you're not the one. and really make sure that you're bringing that regularly to your clients. That doesn't have to happen every week, but if you have a webinar every month or every 2 weeks, what's happening right now, then generally you'll be able to stay in front of a lot of people with a very low lift. Next up on the list is our friends down in Austin, Ironbridge Private Wealth, my man Jim Denholm, who is just doing a phenomenal job from a marketing perspective, really keeping people up to speed on what's happening in the market and also too, what moves you can make. So they have a very unique investing strategy. They're very rules-based as it relates to their investment strategy. And they're combating the market right now and just the communications right now in 2 ways. The first of which is through their blog. The key with them is that Jim has a very unique writing style. So he has a very unique way into content. He has a little bit more flavor than what you would see out there of other advisors or other wealth management firms. He adds a little bit of flavor on top of the content. And so from that perspective, he's seen that a lot of people resonate with his stories. A lot of people resonate with his personality, specifically when he's doing the writing, when he's actually putting pen to paper and he's adding his own flavor. So what he's done really well right now is he's brought in other elements, brought in other analogies into his content. Specifically, he's always done this, but he's doing this really well right now to help educate the market and bring through those commonalities on the analogies. So, for example, on this piece, he's bringing through a Shakespeare analogy, but he's done others in the past. In general, when you think about what you can do to help people get educated on the market, bringing in outside examples that can be comparative, whether it's historical past examples of the market or just like literally something from another industry or something completely unrelated that can help depict what you're trying to get across, can be insanely beneficial because a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people connect well with analogies and it adds a story element to your content. So what he's doing really well is telling a story. It's important to tell your story. A lot of people will just throw data points at the wall and they'll say, okay, what does this mean for me? And what does this mean in context of the situation? Storytelling and telling a more robust story around the data can really help you get your point across as an advisor. So if you're creating a piece of content, if you're creating an email, an article, a video, whatever the case may be, take a step back and figure out what story can I tell around this to help educate people and to help make it real and make it real for those folks, whether it's a hypothetical case study or just bringing an analogy from another industry. Additionally, similarly to the Potomac guys, Jim's doing an awesome job from a webinar perspective. He's doing something a little bit different from BWM. He's actually recording his webinars, he's inviting them. So he had one yesterday, he had about 40 people on the webinar. He's inviting them to the webinar, hosting the webinar, and then he is actually putting that webinar on YouTube after the fact. And he's promoting that through YouTube. So this is his latest webinar. Specifically, the reason, the point to make there, the thing to drive home there is that it's super critical and very important to think about if you're recording one of those webinars that I talked about in the BWM example, how do you get the most juice out of that squeeze? How can you get to a place where you can take that packaged asset that you might have only done for clients and really take to a place where that can be shared out more broadly? So when you're creating a content, if you're creating a client-specific piece right now or a client-specific update, ask yourself, can you make 1 tweak, 2 tweaks, 3 tweaks to be able to really share that out more broadly as it relates to a bigger audience or as it relates to a bigger distribution list? And our last example here is Callie Cox, who actually came referred to me by Shauna Ohm, my new best friend that I got to meet last week out at Jolt. And Callie works for Etoro, which we all know is the social trading platform. She puts out a ton of good content. And what she's doing really, really well is not only creating a lot of really strong written content. So for example, this was a piece that she wrote yesterday, I think, or actually today, about finding the market bottom. You can see here how she structured the actual blog post. She included quick up front. She's also including some really compelling visuals. They're very simple visuals, but they're very compelling, right? This is just showing S&P versus Bitcoin. She's also including more than one visual to help tell the story and also to break up the content. When you're creating a written piece of content, it's important to break up your content with visuals to help drive home your point, because otherwise a lot of people end up moving out if you don't have that, moving off the content, if you don't have that visual breakup to draw them back in. So she's doing a great job of that. In addition to that, she's including next, like what could happen next, and she's anchoring the content at the end with that call to action or with that piece of advice, which is so critical as it relates to building that content regularly. And building that audience regularly, is that you're leaving them with a what's next, or what can I expect next. So she's done an awesome job there. And the other thing that Kelly is doing a great job on is Twitter. So Twitter, she knows her audience, right? She's going after a more active trading audience. She has a super big Twitter following, like about 25,000 Twitter follows. And what she's doing is she's not only building the fact that she's sharing her content on Twitter specifically, but she's also doing a great job of keeping people updated real time on the market. Now, if that's not your audience, if you're not going off real-time traders, or if not going off people who trade actively, or DIYers, or whatever the case may be, it may not make sense. But for Callie, that is her audience, right? So from that perspective, she's sharing content real time. She's mixing in both graphics, GIFs, as well as videos into her content. She's also putting out threads. So she knows her channel. Her channel is Twitter. And that's the key here, is that when you're developing something like this and you're trying to keep people updated real time, you don't have to live on all channels. Know your audience, know your channel, and be able to communicate to them specifically from a channel perspective, and know exactly where they play so you can play there to get your message across to them in the most effective manner. So that's our examples. All these people are doing an awesome job keeping people updated on the market. Their audience is updated on the market. They are doing it in different ways. As you can see, they are able to bring their message to the forefront in different channels, in different formats. The key here is just staying active. Be in front of your clients as much as you can. Keep them educated, keep them assured, let them understand how all of this is going to impact them, and just keep shipping.